The bark shattered the silence like a gunshot. Officer Megan Riley froze mid-step as Diesel, her canine partner, lunged forward with a growl that vibrated through the soles of her boots. His gaze locked on an old oak tree, gnarled, ancient, and looming like a sentry in the fading light of early evening. The hairs on the back of Megan's neck stood up. Diesel didn't bark without reason. And tonight, something was wrong. Megan had walked this stretch of the park more times than she could count. A quiet trail in rural Georgia, popular with joggers and dog walkers. Nothing dangerous ever happened here, until now. She gripped Diesel's leash tighter as he barked again, more urgently this time. He wasn't acting aggressive. He was panicked, desperate. He kept tugging toward the tree, tail stiff, nose to the ground, circling the thick roots like he was chasing a ghost. Megan knelt beside him and ran a hand along his fur. "What is it, boy?" Diesel didn't flinch. His nose was pressed to a specific point along the tree's base, a hollow in the bark that Megan hadn't noticed before. It looked almost man-made. The wood was worn smooth and clean, not cracked like natural rot. She reached out, touching the edge. The bark moved. Hollow. A strange chill rippled up her spine. Her instincts kicked in, the same ones honed over 12 years of patrol and 6 with Diesel at her side. Something was buried here. Something someone didn't want found. But protocol was protocol. She didn't have a warrant or probable cause, not yet. Megan clipped Diesel's leash back on and tugged gently. "Let's finish the loop. We'll come back tomorrow." Diesel didn't want to leave. He dug his paws in, whined, barked again. It wasn't until they were halfway back to the squad car that Megan realized her hand was shaking. Later that night, after a lukewarm shower and a silent dinner, Megan sat in her recliner staring at the ceiling fan. Diesel lay by her feet, unusually restless. Every few minutes, his ears twitched toward the front door, like he expected someone or something to show up. She tried to read a paperback she'd picked up at a gas station weeks ago, but the words refused to register. Her mind kept drifting back to that hollow in the tree, the way Diesel had barked, the look in his eyes. It wasn't curiosity, it was fear. She flipped the book shut and stood up. The next morning, Megan drove to the park before sunrise. She didn't bring backup. She didn't tell dispatch. This was just a hunch. Unofficial. Quiet. Diesel led the way again, as if he hadn't forgotten a single footstep from the night before. They reached the oak tree in under 3 minutes. Morning fog clung low to the ground. The air smelled of damp soil and old leaves. Megan crouched and pushed aside the bark flap again. Beneath it, the hollow opened wider than she remembered. She pulled out her flashlight and angled it inside. What she saw made her recoil. A stack of plastic containers, tightly sealed. Dusty, but intact. One had a strip of masking tape on it with a faded date. March 2011. Diesel whimpered behind her. Megan stood up fast and called it in. This time, officially. The scene was quickly locked down. Forensics arrived. Detectives. Even the chief drove out. Cameras rolled. Neighbors gathered behind yellow tape. Diesel watched from the passenger seat of Megan's cruiser, nose pressed to the window. The containers held more than just papers. Photographs, maps, journal pages, newspaper clippings, even old cassette tapes. Each item was tagged and bagged by techs who looked more spooked by the minute. A young officer named Cole handed Megan a clipboard. "You're going to want to see this." She flipped to the first evidence photo, a black and white image of a teenage girl. Pale, thin, wide-eyed, like she'd just seen something no one should ever have to see. The back of the photo was labeled June 5, 2012, Julia A. Athens, GA. Megan's heart dropped. That name. She remembered the case. Everyone in Georgia did. Julia Anderson. disappeared walking home from school. Never found. Never solved. Until now? At this point, if you believe in the incredible power of dogs like Diesel, not just as partners, but as heroes, consider subscribing to our channel Heroes for Animals. We share real stories of bravery, loyalty, and the bond that changes lives. Tap that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. Back in the precinct, Megan sat across from Detective Warren, who had been working cold cases for longer than she'd been in uniform. He laid the photograph and several others out on the table. Every single girl here is linked to a missing persons report from the last 15 years, he said. Most were ruled runaways, a couple still open, no leads until now. Megan ran her fingers along the edges of the photos. They were organized, labeled, dated. Someone had cataloged their victims. The realization was like a slap to the face. This wasn't some weirdo's creepy stash, she muttered. This was a trophy room. Warren nodded grimly. Serial killer. And it looks like your dog just kicked open the door. Diesel sat in the hallway, wagging his tail faintly as techs passed by, some offering him little head scratches or nods of gratitude. Megan crouched beside him and rubbed behind his ears. You saved them, she whispered. You really did. But Diesel didn't relax. He kept looking toward the evidence room, as if he knew there was still more buried. Somewhere. The lab reeked of formaldehyde, dust, and something far less sterile. The smell of secrets pulled out of the dirt after being buried too long. Megan stood at the end of a long metal table, arms crossed over her chest, her police badge cold against her sweater. The room buzzed with voices, but her eyes stayed fixed on the items spread out before her. The evidence team had finished their preliminary sort. 17 sealed containers, each one labeled, each one dated, each one disturbing. Diesel paced behind her, ears twitching every time someone new entered the room. He wasn't barking now, but his alert posture told her what she already knew deep in her bone. They'd only scratched the surface. Detective Warren stepped in, his coffee steaming in one hand and a folder in the other. We ran the names from the photos. 7 confirmed missing persons cases, some local, some out of state. Every single one unsolved. Megan shifted her weight. How'd they end up under that tree? Same question we're all asking. Warren dropped the folder onto the table. You and Diesel might have just kicked open a cold case wall of nightmares. One envelope caught Megan's eye. Faded red marker scrawled across the front. Property of JG, do not destroy. She reached for a pair of gloves before carefully opening the seal. Inside were several Polaroids, some curled from moisture. They showed what looked like basements, chains, empty chairs, a scratched-up radio. One photo made her step back. It showed a teenage boy, bound, sitting in a chair, eyes hollow. The back of the photo simply read, Number 4, didn't last the night. Megan's breath caught. This guy wasn't just collecting evidence, she murmured. He was documenting everything. Warren nodded. We've already submitted prints and hair fibers from the boxes. But here's the wild part. We found trace DNA under one tape seal. Came back partial, but with a match to a former state parks employee. Retired 10 years ago. What's the name? Warren hesitated. Jack Galloway. Megan blinked. Wait, Jack Galloway? The guy who went missing after that boating accident on Lake Sinclair? Yeah. Warren tossed down a printed mugshot from 2005. Turns out, no one ever found his body. The boat was recovered, but Galloway was presumed drowned. Megan stared at the photo. She remembered the case. Everyone did. Local celebrity in his day, ran school nature programs, gave tree talks to third graders. So either he faked his death, she said slowly, or someone is planting this stuff to make it look like he did. Bingo. And either way, Warren looked toward the door. This is no longer just a local case. FBI's en route. Later that afternoon, Megan and Diesel returned to the park. not as casual visitors this time. Now they were the catalyst of a potential multi-state investigation. She glanced around at the familiar trail, feeling like it had shifted under her without warning. Joggers still passed by. Kids rode bikes. Couples walked dogs. No one had any idea that just feet away from their daily lives, a killer had stored trophies of death and pain. She crouched by the oak again. The soil was disturbed. Forensics had combed every inch. But Megan's gut said there was more. This wasn't just about hiding evidence, this was ritual. Diesel sniffed around, tail stiff. Then a sharp bark. He turned. He ran. "Diesel!" Megan shouted, sprinting after him. He bolted down the path, paws thudding against the ground like thunder. Past the pond. Past the maintenance shed. Toward a smaller grove of trees near the back of the park where most people never went. Megan followed, heart pounding. Diesel stopped in front of another massive tree. Not as wide as the first oak, but just as old. He began barking, then digging. Fast, violent. Dirt flew. Megan dropped to her knees beside him and helped clear the soil. Her fingers struck metal. She froze. A tin lunchbox, rusted, heavy. Megan called it in. An hour later, the tin box sat opened under lab lights. Inside, a woman's wallet, expired license from 2009, a baby's sock, a cracked cell phone, still holding a half-charged battery, a journal, leather-bound and damp, but still legible. Megan skimmed the first page. "I don't think I'm going to make it. He said if I screamed again, he'd cut my tongue out. If anyone finds this, please tell my mom I'm sorry I went to the bus stop alone." The name signed at the bottom, Emily R. Megan sat back in her chair. Emily Reese, a 13-year-old who vanished on her way to summer camp in 2010. A case Megan remembered vividly. Her face had been on milk cartons. Diesel paced the hallway again, his nails clicking on the tile. He looked toward the exit like he wanted to keep searching. Because he knew. They weren't done. The FBI arrived the next morning. Special Agent Laura Finch shook Megan's hand with a no-nonsense grip. She wore a dark suit and didn't smile. "We've already started cross-referencing your findings with other open cases. Galloway's name popped in 3 different states. Always living near wooded areas. Always with some connection to city parks or forestry." Megan raised an eyebrow. "You think he used his job to scout hiding spots?" Finch nodded. "And possibly to stalk victims. It's likely he moved his collection with him across counties." "What about the photos? The journal entries?" Finch paused. "They're consistent with known serial offenders who keep records, not just of the victims, but of the feelings associated with the kills. Keeps them in control. Keeps them reliving it." Megan shook her head. "That's so dark." Finch looked down at Diesel, who lay quietly under Megan's desk. "Your partner may have just broken open one of the longest-running unsolved murder strings in southeastern U.S. history." That night, Megan couldn't sleep. She sat on her porch with Diesel curled at her feet, sipping lukewarm tea and staring into the darkness. How many people had passed that oak tree? How many kids had played tag near it? How many lives were stolen and stashed in silence? She reached down and scratched Diesel's ear. "You found them, boy. You gave them back their names." Diesel lifted his head and licked her hand, his amber eyes bright even in the dark. He didn't bark. Not tonight. The tape recorder clicked and whirred like an insect trapped in a jar. Megan stared at it as it crackled to life in the evidence lab. A forensic tech, wearing gloves and a skeptical expression, had just popped in a fresh AA battery and pressed play. The voice that emerged wasn't what she expected. Male, steady, too calm. "If you've found this, then you've already dug too far." The room went silent. Megan leaned in, her arms tensed on the counter. "I never wanted to be found. Not truly. This isn't a confession. This is a preservation. A legacy. Proof that no one ever really sees the rot until the tree falls." Megan met Agent Finch's eyes from across the room. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. That voice. It was likely Jack Galloway. But what struck her most wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. There was no remorse, just arrogance. Later that day, Megan drove with Finch and two other agents to a storage facility 15 minutes outside town. The facility had just called in a hit on Galloway's name from a years-old rental unit paid in cash. Unit number 114. The metal door groaned as it rolled open. At first, it looked ordinary. Dusty furniture, a few Rubbermaid bins, a rolled-up tent. But Diesel barked before they even stepped inside. His nose twitched. His hackles rose. Megan unclipped his leash. Diesel sniffed toward the back wall, where a set of shelves stood covered in a blue tarp. One bark, then two. Megan pulled the tarp away. Beneath it, a row of identical black duffel bags, each labeled with duct tape and a year. One for every year from 2004 to 2013. Finch crouched and unzipped the bag marked 2006. Inside, clothing, photographs, a small child's shoe, and a notebook labeled Subject Number 5, Lake Route. Megan's throat tightened. This man had been hunting for nearly a decade and keeping souvenirs. The forensic team moved in fast, documenting everything. Meanwhile, Megan walked Diesel back toward the car, her mind spinning. "I don't get it," she said aloud. "Why hide this stuff? Why keep it?" Diesel nudged her hand, sensing the unease radiating from her. Finch approached with an evidence bag. "You need to see this." Inside was a Polaroid. Another victim, likely, but this one had something different. A name tag from a summer camp. Green Pines Camp, Macon, GA. Megan froze. "Green Pines? My daughter went there last year," one of the agents muttered. Finch nodded. "It's real. Camp's still active. But this photo dates back to 2008. A girl named Brenna Calloway went missing on a field trip during a canoe ride. Her body was never recovered. Everyone thought it was an accident." Megan stared at the girl in the photo, young, freckled, life frozen in the instant before fear. "He's been hiding in plain sight." That night, Megan returned to her office and pulled out a whiteboard. She began charting every known victim, starting with names confirmed from the photos and evidence. Ages, locations, years, proximity to wooded areas or state parks. A sick pattern started to emerge. He chose girls aged 10 to 14. Always near forests or rivers, always near towns with a population under 50,000, and always in summer. She drew a red circle around the years 2010 and 2011, the period with the most evidence found so far. Diesel sat at her feet, tail thumping softly. She looked down at him. "How many more, boy?" He simply stared, ears forward, waiting. 2 days later, the team received a call from a small town 3 counties north. A man had called in about a strange smell near a hunting blind that hadn't been used in years. When local authorities opened the hatch beneath the blind, they found a third cache. More containers. One with a dated grocery receipt and a red bandana. The date? 3 weeks ago. Megan and Finch drove up immediately. Diesel came along. At the scene, Diesel's behavior changed. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He growled, low, constant. He sniffed around the blind, nose twitching furiously, and then bolted into the brush. Megan sprinted after him. What they found was chilling. A makeshift campsite, still warm, empty food wrappers, a burned-out fire pit, and a half-finished journal entry on a torn page. "They're getting close. Too close. I may have to move again. But the dog, the damn dog, he's the problem. He always was." Megan's blood ran cold. He was watching them, and he knew about Diesel. They secured the site, bagged the evidence, and notified nearby towns. The FBI elevated the case to a fugitive pursuit. Jack Galloway, if he was still alive, was now the most wanted man in Georgia. But Megan couldn't shake the thought that he was playing with them, leaving crumbs, leading them in circles. Every clue felt placed, designed. "What if he wants us to find it?" she asked Finch. "You think it's a game?" "I think it's a legacy, just like he said on that tape." That evening, Megan parked her cruiser on the edge of the same park where Diesel first found the oak. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees. She sat on the hood, arms crossed, Diesel beside her. She scanned the tree line. Quiet, but her heart thudded like a war drum. She could feel it now. The weight of every name they didn't know yet. The families who had spent years wondering. The kids who never came home. And the man who had walked among them, unnoticed, with a smile and a shovel. Diesel stood up suddenly, ears high. Megan turned. A figure, far off, moving behind the trees. Too quick to see clearly, but tall, broad shoulders, faded green jacket, gone in a blink. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Diesel barked once, loud and sharp. Then he ran. Diesel's paws pounded through the forest floor like drum beats. Megan ran after him, branches whipping her face, heart racing in her throat. "Diesel, hold up!" But he didn't stop. They had both seen it, the figure slipping between the trees like smoke. A man, broad, quick, gone before Megan could even shout. She pushed harder through the underbrush, following Diesel's trail until it suddenly vanished near a shallow creek. The sun had dropped below the horizon now, and the woods were turning into shadows. Diesel circled, nose low, tail stiff. He sniffed upstream, then barked once, a sharp alert, before turning back to her. Gone, just like that. Back at the station, the tech team worked late, trying to decipher the new journal page found at the campsite. Megan sat beside Detective Warren and Agent Finch as they pored over files dating back to the early 2000s. "I want everything tied to Galloway," Megan said. "Childhood, work history, even his high school yearbooks if we can find them. Something's not adding up." Finch nodded. "You think there's a deeper pattern?" "There always is," Megan muttered. "Monsters don't just show up out of nowhere." By morning, they had answers. Galloway was born in 1963 in Clayton County, Georgia. His mother died when he was 8, cancer. His father, a logger and part-time preacher, had a reputation for violence, but was never charged with anything. Galloway bounced around foster care until age 12, when he was placed with a couple in rural Alabama. From there, things got murky. No school records between 7th and 10th grade, no photos, no medical history, just gaps. "Like he vanished," Megan said. "Or was hidden," Finch replied. "The first official job record? A seasonal ranger's aide in a small state park, just 20 miles from the first missing child on their map. The pieces weren't scattered. They were buried on purpose." Meanwhile, Diesel grew restless. He refused to eat his usual dry food, whined every time Megan left the house. At the office, he wouldn't settle. His nose kept pushing drawers open, his eyes locked on the door. He was sensing something, so Megan trusted him. She brought him back to the park. Not to the oak tree this time, but to the farthest trail, the one that bordered county property and an old abandoned power substation. Diesel walked slowly, deliberately. He sniffed every post, every tree. Megan stayed close. Then, a low growl. He stopped in front of a rusted utility pole half swallowed by kudzu vines. Megan frowned. "What is it, buddy?" Diesel scratched once at the base. She crouched and pushed away the vines. There it was, another hidden compartment, a hollow in the concrete base, covered by old wood and moss. Inside, wrapped in plastic, a shoebox. Megan slipped on gloves and opened it. Her breath hitched. Inside, a Girl Scout sash, a gold necklace with a heart-shaped locket, and a tiny cassette labeled Subject Number 9, Confession. Back at the lab, the audio was distorted, but one thing was clear. A teenage girl's voice, tired, crying. "I told him I wouldn't scream. I didn't. I swear. I just want to go home." Then silence. Then Galloway's voice. "You're part of something now. Don't you get it? You're one of the special ones." Megan had to step out of the room. Her stomach turned. She leaned against the hallway wall, hand on her chest. Diesel pressed into her side, grounding her. Agent Finch followed her out. You okay? Megan nodded, barely. It's not just about the trophies anymore. He's trying to preserve the pain. Finch sighed. This isn't just obsession, this is ego. He wants to be remembered. The press had caught wind of the case now. News vans lined the front of the station. National media ran headlines. K9 uncovers serial killer's evidence vault. Retired ranger may be linked to decades of disappearances. The dog who barked at death. Megan wasn't interested in interviews. She was interested in justice. A breakthrough came late that night. One of the cold case techs had matched a fingerprint from the cassette to a missing person from 2007, a girl named Lila Martin, who vanished walking home from swim practice in Fayetteville. Her family had always believed she'd run away. But now Megan held her locket in her hand. The case officially crossed over into federal serial homicide territory. FBI profilers got involved. They sent over a psychological profile that chilled Megan to the bone. Subject likely operates with high confidence, believes he is invisible, enjoys control. Target age range selected for emotional manipulation, likely to revisit hiding spots. Sees the investigation as a personal challenge. Finch underlined that last line. He's watching us. Diesel barked at the window that night. Not a soft bark, an alarm. Megan grabbed her flashlight and gun, creeping onto the porch. The night was thick and still. Crickets chirped. A dog barked in the distance. Nothing. But on her windshield, a note, written in red marker. The dog always knew. Too bad you didn't. Her blood ran ice cold. She scanned the woods but saw no one. Just blackness and shadows. Diesel snarled beside her. She tore the note off and raced back inside. They dusted the note for prints. Nothing. But they did find a partial shoe print in the dirt under her window. Same size, same tread as the one found near the hunting blind 2 weeks ago. Galloway had been at her house. Agent Finch ordered 24-hour patrols. Megan refused to go on leave. I'm not backing down now, she said. If he wants to finish something, then I want to finish it first. Later that week, Megan stood in front of the evidence board again. Red string, Polaroids, pins, the web of pain. Her eyes landed on a tiny camp marked in red, a closed-down ranger station near Tallulah Gorge. Galloway had worked there. 2 cases nearby, one never found. I want to check that cabin, she said. Finch raised an eyebrow. That's remote territory. Megan nodded, exactly why he'd go back. They prepped a team. But Megan only trusted one partner to lead her in. Diesel. The road to Tallulah Gorge twisted like a rattlesnake through Georgia's northern mountains, flanked by towering pines and jagged rock. The air was thinner up here, colder. Even in summer, the breeze carried a damp chill from the river that cut through the canyon below. Megan gripped the wheel of the department-issued SUV as she and Diesel climbed higher. Agent Finch followed in the unmarked black vehicle behind them, along with 2 tactical units. They weren't rolling in lights and sirens. This wasn't a raid. This was a hunt, and the prey was someone who had already proven he could disappear into trees and shadows like smoke. The ranger station had been abandoned for over 15 years, shut down after funding cuts. But records showed Galloway had been assigned here briefly during the 90s. 2 disappearances had occurred nearby, a 14-year-old girl and a solo hiker, both presumed lost in the wild terrain. Now Megan knew better. She parked in the gravel lot, stepping out with Diesel at her side. The building was still standing, barely. The front porch sagged and the windows were boarded up, but the stone foundation remained solid. Agent Finch joined her, scanning the area. Cell service cuts out 2 miles back. Radios only. Old school, Megan said, patting her shoulder unit. Diesel stood still. Then he lifted his nose and growled, low, almost like a rumble from deep inside his chest. They swept the cabin slowly. Inside it smelled of mildew, ash, and something faintly sweet, like rotted fruit. Flashlights cut through the gloom, revealing a dusty table, broken furniture, and animal droppings in the corner. But then Megan spotted it. Boot prints. Fresh. leading to a back closet. She raised her hand, signaling the agents behind her. Diesel pressed close. She opened the door. Inside, not a closet, a trap door. The crawl space descended into a narrow, stone-lined cellar. Musty, cold, and carved into the side of the gorge itself. Whoever built it had reinforced the walls with scrap lumber, creating a makeshift bunker. There was a cot, an oil lamp, a rusted stove, and a map pinned to the wall. Megan stepped closer. The map was marked in red X's, dozens of them, all across northern Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. Some were circled, others crossed out. Each one was labeled with a year, some with names. Confirmed kill sites. Agent Finch took a shaky breath. He's been tracking his work like a soldier marking battlefields. Megan's eyes scanned the map. One location was circled twice in red. A point labeled only, Return 2025. This one's personal, she whispered. In a crate beneath the cot, they found photos. Fresh ones. One showed Megan walking Diesel near the park. Another showed her at a gas station. One, chillingly, was taken outside her house, through her living room window. Galloway had been watching her for weeks. This wasn't just a cat-and-mouse game anymore. This was obsession. They secured the site and called for backup to document everything. But Megan couldn't sit still. She paced outside the cabin while the sun began to dip over the gorge, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Diesel barked suddenly, sharp and alert. Megan turned. He was facing the tree line. And then she saw it? A figure. Moving fast. "Galloway!" she shouted. She unclipped Diesel's leash. "Find him!" The forest exploded into chaos. Diesel tore through the underbrush with Megan and two agents close behind. Finch radioed for air support, but the signal was already crackling. The figure ran with practiced ease, weaving through rock, leaping logs, always just out of reach. But he made one mistake. He slowed down near a ridge, and Diesel closed in. With a thunderous growl, the German shepherd leapt and tackled the man behind the knees, sending them both crashing into the dirt. Megan arrived seconds later, gun drawn. But it wasn't Galloway. It was a decoy, a middle-aged man, terrified, covered in leaves, and clearly drugged. He whispered through chattering teeth, He made me wear the jacket. Said he'd kill me if I didn't run." Megan's blood ran cold. This was a trap. Back at the ranger station, they regrouped. The decoy, a missing transient from Macon, had been held captive and released to draw them away. Megan paced the dirt road furious. "He's toying with us, buying time," Finch agreed. "He's still nearby. He wouldn't abandon his map. This bunker, it's too important to him." Just then, Diesel barked, this time from behind the cabin. Megan rushed over. Diesel had found a second tunnel, hidden behind brush and a false panel of plywood. A narrow passage led deeper into the cliff. They followed it, flashlights scanning. The tunnel opened into a cavern carved from granite, supported by beams and packed with stolen items. ID cards, jewelry, hair ties, a baby's blanket, and at the far end, a camera tripod with fresh dirt beneath it. He'd been filming, staging, recording trophies. Megan's stomach twisted. "This is his sanctuary," she whispered, "where he remembers everything." Then she saw the back wall, scratched with writing. Dozens of names, some crossed out, some still waiting. Her own name was on it, so was Diesel's. They secured the cavern. No sign of Galloway, but the evidence was undeniable. This was where he returned to reflect, to fuel his sick ego. The next morning, Megan walked the edge of the gorge trail with Diesel beside her, both of them quiet. The morning mist clung to the river below. Birds called through the trees. For the first time in days, the world felt still, but it wouldn't last. Back at the precinct, Agent Finch pulled her aside. "We traced the camping fuel from the tunnel to a general store in Blairsville. Galloway was seen there 3 days ago, paid cash, bought dehydrated meals." Megan's jaw clenched. "He's preparing for the long haul. Or something final," Finch added. "Something he wants us to see." Megan looked down at Diesel, then back up at the map from the tunnel. One red-circled X burned in her mind, a tree symbol near a river bend. Not labeled, not crossed out, just waiting. The red circle on the map burned into Megan's thoughts like a brand. It was simple. A hand-drawn tree next to a bend in the river. No name, no date. But it was marked twice. Bold, intimate, unlike the rest. A place Galloway planned to return to. Or finish something. 3 days later, they hiked in under heavy cover at dawn. Megan led the way, with Diesel at her side, nose twitching, ears high. Finch and 2 FBI agents moved in silence behind them. They had satellite imagery, trail cams, and motion sensors ready. But none of it mattered as much as Diesel's nose. The trail curved along the riverbank for almost a mile, then veered toward a clearing marked by 3 tall poplars, and in the center stood a massive dead oak, limbs brittle like claws reaching into the sky. The team paused. Diesel growled. "There," Megan whispered, "Set. That's the spot." They approached cautiously, weapons drawn, radios on, silent. Megan stepped around the base of the oak, scanning the trunk. Then she saw it, a panel cut into the bark, identical to the first tree where it all began. She knelt, brushed it open. Inside was a metal lockbox. She opened it with gloved hands. Inside, a letter, handwritten in red marker. A cassette tape. A single photograph of Megan and Diesel standing in front of their cruiser, dated 2 weeks ago. Her fingers trembled. Finch leaned over her shoulder. "Read it." Megan unfolded the letter. It was just a few lines. "Some trees don't fall. They rot standing up. You won't find me, but you'll find what matters. I always leave something behind. JG." Diesel let out a bark. Loud, sharp, focused. He was staring at the base of the oak. He began to dig. Megan dropped the letter and got on her knees beside him. The others joined in, cutting through roots and packed soil. Inch by inch, they uncovered something hard. A concrete vault. Someone had poured and shaped it by hand. Warren called for excavation gear, but Megan didn't wait. She found a weak point and began hammering it with a pry bar. Crack! The corner split. She pulled the slab free. Inside was a narrow, dark chamber lined with plastic. And in the corner, a girl. Alive. She was filthy, dehydrated, barely conscious, wrapped in a camp blanket with a gags in her mouth and duct tape on her wrists. Eyes swollen, lips cracked, but breathing. Hey, you're okay," Megan whispered, heart pounding. "You're safe now." The girl stared up at her, wild-eyed and silent. Finch radioed for medevac as the team worked to pull her out. Diesel never took his eyes off her. His tail wagged softly. Just once. Hours later, the girl, later identified as Haley Rhodes, a 15-year-old who'd been missing for 11 days, lay in a hospital bed, recovering. Her parents arrived in tears. Megan stood outside the glass, watching, fighting back her own emotions. "She's the one from the decoy photo," Finch said beside her. "He took her to make it personal. He wanted us to chase him," Megan replied, "so he could watch." "Do you think he was there today?" Megan looked out at the trees. "He's always nearby." They never found him. Not that day, not the next. But the vault, the recordings, the tunnel networks, the photos, they were enough. The FBI declared Jack Galloway officially wanted for murder, abduction, and interstate crimes against minors. His profile was distributed nationally. Trail cams in dozens of parks were armed. Every tip line lit up for weeks. But he vanished again, like he always had. 1 month later, Megan sat on her front porch, coffee in hand, Diesel snoozing at her feet. The wind rustled through the trees as the sun dipped low across the horizon. The case had gone quiet, but nothing was really over. She'd been promoted to regional K9 trainer, her choice. She still worked cases, but now she trained the next generation of working dogs, using Diesel's instincts as a model. "You saved them," she whispered to him. "All of them." Diesel opened one eye, tail wagging once. Later that week, a package arrived at the precinct. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside, a photograph of Megan and Diesel, taken from the woods. Recent. A new letter. You don't cut down a whole forest to stop one tree. Some roots go deep, deeper than you know. Signed only, JG. Megan read it in silence, then lit a match. The photo burned in seconds. Back at the first oak, a bronze plaque now sits embedded in stone, dedicated to Diesel, K9 hero. He barked at what others could not see. He found the silence no one else could hear. 2024, forever on duty. Thank you for following this emotional journey through The Bark Beneath the Oak. From the first bark to the final clue, Diesel reminded us that sometimes the heroes don't wear badges. They wear fur and listen to instincts we can't begin to understand. What did you think about Megan and Diesel's story? Do you believe Galloway is still out there, or do you think justice caught up to him in some other way? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more true and emotional stories of courage, loyalty, and the bond between humans and their four-legged protectors.